What's up, guys? Welcome back to a very frustrating Falcons post-game report, I guess you could call it, by Fish and Grits, the podcast. We are running a man short today. Marco is out. He is busy doing other things that he cares about more than us, and football, apparently. We all think his priorities are jacked up. There's nothing more important than football, and we all know this. In all seriousness,
On a serious note,
as my brain is still scrambled from the way that game ended. That was a winnable game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a winnable game against a superior opponent. In our group chat, I was very, very active today talking about some of the things that I saw on the field. And really took in from, this being the second time around against the division opponent. And those are the telling matchups. First game, you can usually catch people off guard, especially when you're catching someone with a new starter like Taysom Hill. We saw him last time. But this is the game where you go, okay, we have the tape now. We've seen what you've done. This is a division game. It's going to be tougher in general. But now this is even tougher because you now know what your opponent is trying to do against you. So this was the one where you see who executes better, who's better coached, and who wins in the small things. That's what the second matchups always do in the division game. And I think it's safe to say up until about 7 minutes left in the fourth, the Saints won all three of those things. And we'll break down all those things a little bit more further on. But Micah, what's the key things that you saw in this game, and not so much detailed things, but like an overarching thing that you saw in this matchup compared to last one, or just in general that you've observed from both games?
Well, I mean, I think while what's his name did have like his career record running, I think Taysom Hill did have his like career record running in rushing yards. We tried to take away Michael Thomas, and the problem was he just hit everybody else, and honestly it got it worked out better when we stopped focusing and stopped doubling Michael Thomas, and we're just going to man up. If he catches it, all right, whatever. But force him to beat us. But one of the biggest things I saw offensive, like I said, defense didn't play a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
A couple the Grady penalty, the Grady unnecessary roughness quarterback
roughing the
passer penalty. That hurt us because that basically gave them momentum to get the first touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, defense did a very good job. They've been what they've been the past 8 weeks or so that Raheem has been the head coach, and they've been very solid.
Mm-hmm.
Give up plays here and there. Really, I think most of their points just came from the offensive inefficiency. A lot of 3 and outs, and the defense was just on the field for almost the entire first half.
Let me give you a stat to help out with what you just said. So 2 weeks ago, we were 2 of 14 on third down. This week, we were 5 of 13 on third down.
Yeah.
So in the series against the Saints, we were 7 of 27 on third down.
Yeah.
So you're completely right. I mean, that the defense played so well today, and that's a type of defensive performance against a very good offensive team. Even though it's Taysom Hill, Taysom Hill is not a scrub that some of the media has portrayed him to be, or even fans have portrayed him to be. Like even Lionel says in our group chat, we can't lose twice to Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is not a bad quarterback. There is a reason that Sean Payton him in college and saw him on that practice squad, and were literally licking their chops waiting to get him. He's very strong. He's a very athletic quarterback. some of his reads and some of his throws can be fine-tuned a little bit, but he's a very good quarterback. He gets the ball out quick to the read it needs to be on, and he gets it on him quick. Like, he puts the ball on the receiver in a hurry. There's no sitting around waiting around letting that cornerback get that half second more of time to get that hand in there. It's in there. So he's got an arm on him, and he makes some pretty good throws. There was some that it was like, okay, you can see why he's not quite a star quarterback. But if I'm being honest, in that game, Taysom Hill, if you just went into that game blind, and I told, as a fan who'd never seen football at all, and I said, one of these quarterbacks has won an MVP and taken a team to a Super Bowl, and the other is a third game starter, and they're, people aren't really sure who they are, I would be shocked to see if a lot of people would say Matt Ryan was the one that looked like the better quarterback in that matchup.
Yeah.
And I think Jonathan Vilma really, really showed it and explained it exceptionally well when he said, Matt Ryan does well when he hits his back foot and the ball comes out. And when he starts sitting there patting the ball and looking and running through his reads, trying to make the perfect pass, the Falcons offense bogs down. And it's accurate. It's what we've been yelling at each other in the chat for 4, 5, 10 weeks now.
Yeah.
So, Micah, talking about the offense and talking about, what they didn't do on this game, what should we have done and what could we have done in this game to really look better?
What Vilma said, we should have gone up tempo a lot earlier than we did. And, because what Dennis Allen is a much better defensive coordinator than Dirk Cutter is an offensive coordinator. So anything that we call, it was like for the first 3 quarters of the game, it looked like every play we called, they knew what was coming. Because I specifically remember I believe it was the third quarter. It was a third down. It was a third and mid, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, something like that. And they tried to set Julio up with the, they tried to have, I think it was Gage was in the slot. They tried to have him do an out, a little run to the flats, and then Julio came over the top of him on a slant. And Demario Davis was just sitting on it. Yep. He saw it coming and just jumped in front of it. And it's like, so you were that predictable that this defense can pretty much know exactly what play you're going to call or what route combinations you're going to run on a third and short. Something's got to give.
He said it. He was like, the Saints defenders are jumping routes. They're pointing out plays before they happen.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what we were doing because Dirk Cutter is just such an inept offensive coordinator. He's just absolutely terrible. And I don't know how else to say it other than fire Dirk Cutter. If you want to see what this team is actually capable of in Raheem Morris's control, fire Dirk Cutter. Unless Raheem Morris told Arthur, Dirk Cutter's good, we can win with him. Unless that's the case. Team is endorsing Dirk Cutter, then they all got to go. But if you really want to, which I don't think is the case.
Yeah. I just, like I said, I said it a couple weeks ago. I think, it's kind of like, it was kind of like with the Jaguar situation where they fired Tom Coughlin because they felt he was the biggest problem. And then they just left everything in place just to evaluate individual coaches. I think that's what Arthur Blank did. You got rid of Dan Quinn, and then you see what else you have what else you have left. Evaluate everybody else individually, and
I agree.
And I think Dirk has proven he's not it. He's not the guy. But at this point, fire. I mean, you can fire him, but it's not going to make much of a difference. You might have a similar situation regardless. I don't know if you trust anybody else any of the other offensive guys to call the plays. So, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, it's obvious. Dirk is the one that's holding his team back.
So you can say with confidence then that Dirk is the problem.
Yeah.
So then why not fire him?
Because I mean, at this point, what, like, all right, so if you fire him, you get offensive coordinator and you went out. What, like, literally the only thing it does is just ruin your draft position because you're pretty much out of playoff contention now.
But then you can at least say, all right, I've got the pieces in place here to run a winning team. Because if you can go, if you fire Dirk Cutter and the offense does, makes the jump that the defense made when we fired Dan Quinn, that's a winning football team right there. Because the defense, that's a winning team defense. They're not elite, but that's a defense that could put you in the 10 to 15 ranking range because they're aggressive, they tackle well, they're fast. The corners are still young but getting better. We've found everybody's home in the corners. Sheffield's out, Oliver's our slot, and it's Darquez and Terrell on the outside. Kiki's back to what he was. Ricardo, that's arguable about whether or not he still deserves to have a lot of play time, but he offers a lot of intangibles. Right. And then the linebackers, like we talked about on the podcast the other day. By the way, we are Fish and Grits, the podcast. For those that are listening, you can find us on all streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple, iPod, or whatever they're called. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can find us there. And check out our latest episode with Andy and Randy from 92.9 The Game. It's a really good episode. They talk a lot about just a lot of cool stuff. But we have the pieces there. We could use a pass rusher. We could certainly use a pass rusher, and we can maybe get another safety. But KZ, who knows what we're going to do with KZ, and he comes back.
Well, we got to resign. We would have to resign him,
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you can get him for relatively cheap because he hasn't. He had that one season where he broke out, and then this season he was kind of playing down, and then got hurt.
Yeah.
So I think that to really understand on what the direction of this football team is, whether it be win out or lose out, you have to see what you have available. Like you have to determine, is the problem on offense only Dirk Cutter, or does it run deeper than Dirk Cutter? Because we thought, the defense isn't as good as we thought. They're underperforming, and then we made the switch, and it's like, our linebackers are elite. Our corners can play fairly well. The pass rush needs some help, but we can offset that with blitzing. So we've seen on defense what we have. On offense, you kind of have this mixed bag of, are they that good?
But here's the thing: you saw early in the season what the offense was capable of, and
did you?
Well, yeah. The first few games we put up 40 and 30. We put up 40s and 30s consistently early in the season. Then we had some injuries. Julio went down, and then it changed the trajectory of our season.
Yeah, that hurt.
But Grant, I personally, it's just I'm at the point now where it's about 90% Cutter, and I want maybe 80-85%, and then it varies though. Sometimes it's more usually it's more Cutter. Some games, like the first Saints game, to me was a little more Matt Ryan, but this one it was more Cutter. Matt made some mistakes. He did make some mistakes, and then you had early on you had some bonehead Russell Gage missing some easy throws early on. So but it's like I said, it's an overwhelming majority of this loss goes on Dirk Cutter. And but even still, I still think our offensive players though sometimes get real stupid like Gurley. When we're in the red zone on 3rd and 2, we hand you the ball and you lose 7 yards. Really?
Oh, he lost it. He lost every bit of them.
It's like, wow. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like at a certain point, if you
Just go
can't,
down.
if you can't get the first down on the first effort or so, just go down. I mean,
Lunge forward, get a half yard.
exactly. So, or if you're gonna lose yards, I'd rather you lose 1 yard or a half yard than 7 on a third and goal. And it's just like, really, bro, for real. But it's stuff like that. It's Cutter's ineptitude plus bonehead decisions like that really are killing us offensively.
Yeah. I mean, but if like obviously Gurley isn't who he once was. Like that's obvious. Like he's still got a nose for the end zone when you get him close enough. Within like 10 to 15, he's really effective there because he'll find it and he'll just go. And he'll fall forward most of the time. But I mean, there's a hole at running back still. Brian Hill's pretty good. Ito's pretty good, but both of them have some pretty glaring weaknesses.
Yeah.
Gurley is obviously your most complete if you were to use him in the passing game more, but I think that lateral quickness is probably part of the reason that we're not seeing him there more, and just a usage rate. But I'd be shocked to see Gurley back next year, especially what he's put on the field and what he's going to ask for. So with all that being said, I still ask you, why not fire Dirk Cutter? If you can blame 85 to 90% of our problems on Dirk Cutter, you know he's not the answer. You know he's not the future for the Falcons. He's not what we need. Why not fire him?
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like, all right, well, if we fire him, what difference is it going to make?
It could make a huge difference, Mike. It shortens your, say we fire him and we promote Greg Knapp, or we promote one of these, assistants that, could be someone that no one's ever heard of. And we had this genius sitting on there. We have like Brett Coleman sitting on our bench somewhere. And he's like, oh, well, actually, statistically, we should have done this. And he comes in and he's like a genius. Who knows? Who knows? But anything at this point's got to be better than someone that will fail consistently and has failed consistently and will continue to fail consistently to adapt to the modern day NFL game. And it's just, and someone who's unwilling to say 4 verticals and runs up the middle aren't successful anymore. Like,
I mean, I definitely get that. But I still think you run into the same issue though. Because I like I've said, Dirk Cutter,
what's the issue though? That's what I don't get.
Well, one of the biggest issues is you're running somebody else's playbook. So it's like, Dirk Cutter is an idiot running another person's playbook. So it looks bad. But Greg Knapp isn't any more familiar with this playbook, with calling plays out of his playbook, than Dirk Cutter was when he took over the job. So would it make it better?
Well, that's why I say maybe one of these assistants, because if I remember right, when we brought Dirk Cutter in, he didn't bring in a team of assistants. He just kind of filled the offensive coordinator spot, and then we left everyone else below him. I could be wrong there, but I don't remember hearing too much about, a complete turnover of the staff. I know, like, when Marquez left, Raheem just elevated up. So it's like, there's got to be someone down there. I mean, we've got some young, talented guys.
Yeah.
Ulbrich was obviously better than what he was being allowed to do. Raheem is better than what he was being allowed to do.
But we're also not a team. We're not a franchise that takes a lot of risk. So, I mean, it's just one of those. I just, like, while I would love to see anybody else at offensive coordinator. I mean, at this point, I'd just give a 10-year-old Madden player, just give him a controller and let him see what he can do. But over Dirk, but I mean, I don't know if Arthur Blank is going to make that kind of move, and to just like, all right, you're done, promote somebody else.
Well, Raheem's got to be the one to say that to realize that his chance of becoming the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons is being undermined, literally torpedoed by Dirk Cutter, because the advancements that we've made in all other phases of the game as the Atlanta Falcons since switching to Raheem Morris as the head coach have been just literally cut in half because of Dirk Cutter.
Well, I mean, I agree, but at the same time, as the interim coach, do you think he has the same power that they gave Dan Quinn as the actual head coach? And I mean, I think that might be the problem. I think he's just like, yeah, you're the interim coach, you can make decisions on the team, but you can't make coaching personnel decisions. I don't know if he's given that authority. So,
but you have, as Raheem Morris, at this point, you have to at least try. You have to beg. You have to be like, look, Arthur,
please.
This isn't working. I can predict what he's doing with my eyes closed, and just by listening to what's going on in the stadium to know, oh, that was a big play. He's going to run it up the middle on the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, we just got a big running play up the middle. He's going to run almost the exact same concept right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, they're blitzing. He's probably going to have Matt do a 7-step drop and have everyone run double moves. It just doesn't make sense. And he's not going to run rub routes. He's not going to run these easy man-beating concepts. He's not going to protect our wide receivers. Like, you can predict what Dirk Cutter is going to do in just about every situation.
3rd and out, 3rd and 8, 5 wide.
5 wide.
The slot is going to go on and out, and he's going to try and hit one of the out routes.
Hayden's going to run a flat route. Ridley's going to run a quick in, and Julio is probably going to run either a deep post or a dig.
Yeah.
And
then Russell Gage in the slot is going to run an out, and which that was what's his name, Gardner Johnson or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was he ran it so much he was all over it a lot of the time.
I mean, I'll go back to the Vilma thing. Vilma said that the Saints defenders are jumping routes left and right.
Yeah,
because it's the exact same thing that the Falcons did last game that didn't work. And they tried to do it again.
Here's the one thing I do remember, though. I think part of the reason we had success the first time Dirk was there, we ran a lot more no huddle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the Shanahan style West Coast offense is all called from the booth pretty much. There's very little to no huddle, and that was one of the frustrations a lot of fans had the first time when Kyle Shanahan was here, especially in 2015, where Matt had that terrible season with them. It's because it's like, oh, we need to run no huddle. It's like, but that's not how Shanahan calls his offense. He calls his offense. He calls play by play on, and like, even if they do go no huddle, he's calling the play from the booth. So, I mean, I think, like I said, it made a tremendous difference in the 4th quarter when we actually started going no huddle. Like, It's like, all right, Dirk, if you're going to go back to your style offense, then incorporate the no huddle. Just say, Matt, when we're getting out of a rhythm, I need you to just no huddle. We'll go up tempo and just let you control it and try to get the game, try to get the offense back and kick that offense in rhythm. Because right now you need to change something to keep the pressure off this defense, because the defense is spending, 2/3 of the game on the field because the offense is struggling consistently.
Yeah. But I think that's a further indictment against Cutter, because the reason that worked and still works for the most part for Shanahan is because he's able to look at a defense and understand what it's doing and what it's taking away and what it's giving to him, and then exploit that. Whereas Dirk Cutter, you're slowing the offense down and filtering it through the brain of Dirk Cutter. And Dirk Cutter clearly doesn't understand what defenses are doing to his offense. If he does, it does not reflect in his play calling. Just like we talked about last game, when the defense is getting in quick and sending pressure, you can offset that in X amount of ways. And when you don't do any of that,
Yeah.
I mean, like, what else do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm Raheem Morris, I'm begging Arthur Blank, like, look, we've got 3 games left this season. It's against the Buccaneers twice and the Chiefs once. If we don't get rid of Dirk Cutter, we're going to lose at least one of those games by 30 points. Because as good as our defense is, you can't give Pat Mahomes as many opportunities as if you've given Taysom Hill over these last 2 games. You just can't. And the Chiefs defense is much improved. Even though a lot of people still think the Chiefs defense is soft. No. Not with Honey Badger roaming around the field in the middle and letting him do whatever he wants. Chris Jones in the middle. Frank Clark coming off the edge. They got Fuller on the outside playing really good coverage. They got some really good pieces, and their linebackers are pretty aggressive, and their D-line is not a joke at all. They will push you around just like the Saints pushed us around these last 2 games. But then they have an even deadlier offense attached to it. So you can't let this defense, who's young and budding and starting to gain some confidence, go into these last 3 games of the season and get their teeth kicked in by some of these teams because they're being left out on the field to dry because the offense can't do anything. You just can't do it. Even though we won big versus the Raiders last week, that was not the offense. That was not the offense. That was the defense and special teams all day long. I think those 2 units combined put up 29. They put up at least 26 points. I think they put up 29 points.
Even the ones that points that the offense did get, a lot of them came from short fields.
Right, exactly. So if you want to see what this team is actually capable of in the way it is currently put together, you've got to cut the head off the snake. Dirk Cutter's got to go. Let's talk about a couple big plays from the game that really stood out, or a couple moments from the game that really stood out, and then kind of do a quick rundown while doing that, and then we'll go in some closing statements about it and what we think is going to happen over these last couple of games. So you mentioned it earlier, Micah, that first down or that first quarter penalty by Grady Jarrett. What happened there?
Yeah, we had third and long, got the incompletion, but Grady went low and basically took the legs out from under. And according because of the Brady rule, that was a penalty and gave them the first down, and then they just proceeded to drive all the way downfield on us to score their first touchdown.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what the Brady rule is, you can't hit a quarterback below the knee when their legs are planted from throwing the ball. As Brady got hit at the knee that one year by that Chiefs player, I can't remember his name. It was a safety blitz. And tore his ACL.
I believe.
Yeah, it was Pollard. And tore his ACL. So of course the NFL had to protect its golden boy, and no more hitting quarterbacks below the knee. Your strike zone is essentially neck to knees, and really it's about this big in all reality. Otherwise you're going to get flagged because you can't land them on it anymore. So yeah, that was huge. That went from a 3-and-out to, because that was almost a pick by Ricardo too.
And it was deep in their own territory. So
So that went from getting the ball back 0-0 to a Traquan Smith touchdown on that busted coverage by Ricardo Allen. And so they went up 7-0. Second quarter, we got some field goals in there, made it 7-6, didn't do too much after that. And then good night. Ricardo Allen had a rough game today.
Mm-hmm.
He had that dropped interception, which wouldn't have counted for anything because of the roughing penalty. Then the busted coverage touchdown given up to Traquan. And then he followed that up, even though it was a tackle, He got his entire face driven into the turf by Alvin Kamara on one of the nastiest stiff arms I've seen in a long time, where he just grabbed him up here, lifted him, and drove him down. And I was like, oh, man, Alvin is pumped to play his hometown team in his hometown. So, boy, that was disgusting. I think we traded a couple 3-and-outs there with them for a little bit, and then I saw something that I really liked, and I don't know if you noticed it, but Ridley was chirping with the defense. He was going back and forth. Like, as a football player, Micah, and you're losing, or if you're on the opposite side of that and someone's chirping at you and you just beat them last game and you're beating them again this game, how does that make you feel, either as the winner or the person who is winning, or what does it do for someone on the losing side? Like, what's going on there?
Well, I mean, it never bothered me when I was up. It's like, all right, keep talking.
Yeah.
You see the scoreboard, bro. We look, we good right now. So you talk all you want. I think he got into what's his name's head though, Gardner Johnson's head though, a little bit. But he's so emotional. Hell, he fights teammates.
Yeah, that's that always, when people are running their mouth while they're losing, it reminds me of that clip that happened here recently at that local in a high school in the basketball game, when the guy turns to the guy and he's like, and he looks back at him and he goes, and just points at the scoreboard. It's like, dummy, what are you doing? You're losing.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're saying. We're beating you. But yeah, Taysom looked really good in that second quarter. You saw Vilma. I actually like Vilma as a commentator. He knows what he's talking about. Maybe it's just because he knows the Saints team so well. He can give some pretty good insight. What do you think of him?
I mean, well, here's the thing. And as a former Saints player, he wasn't as biased as some of the other color commentary can be, especially the ones who play for, like, because I've seen so many times the ones who don't like Atlanta, like, they just bash Atlanta every chance they get, and Atlanta can't do anything right. And he was fair.
Now, here's a guy who really hates Atlanta.
Yeah, like when Atlanta was a rival for him most of his career, but he said the things, he was critical when he needed to be. But he gave him props when he needed, when when they deserved it. So I liked it. I mean, he was nonpartisan, and that was good.
Yeah. I liked him. But so right before the halftime is when I started to notice it, because the way the Saints defense was treating us, they were rolling coverage towards Julio, doubling him up pretty much every time and letting everyone else live one-on-one. And I was talking to you guys and I said, hey, look, Ridley's got to start winning one-on-ones consistently in order for this offense to open up. And really, it wasn't just on Ridley. It was on Ridley, Hurst, and Gage. They had to win their one-on-one matchups in order for the offense to open up, because then they would no longer be able to allow to shift pressure towards Julio. Julio could work on one-on-one at that point from time to time, because if someone else is winning one-on-one every time, you can't double.
Yeah.
So we went in the half down 14-9 after the Saints offensive line just bullied us all the way down the field. Down 14-9. We came out in the second half, more of the same. Saints were just punching us in the mouth, and we were going, well, that sucks. Please don't hit us again. And they went up, drove down. I think it was like a 14-yard touchdown run by Kamara to go up 21-9. And then, for whatever reason, in typical Saints or Falcons fashion, we woke up. And we're like, hey, we can still win this game. What did you see in the second half and really into the third, beginning of the fourth, for us to get it to really, look a little better than we did? Well, no, actually quite a bit better than we did in the first half.
Really? I mean, well, here's the thing. The defense was like, no, enough is enough. Then they forced a turnover.
Mm-hmm.
And, Matt turned the ball over. deep in our own territory. Then the defense went and got a turnover back from them. So it's like, all right, look, we gave you the ball, but like we cleaned up your mess. Now we need y'all to do something. And then that's when we went hurry. We went the no huddle offense and just marched right down the field on them. And it's like, okay, we should have been doing this a lot earlier.
Yeah.
But I mean that's really, to me, the last several games, the defense has set the tone. Now, granted, they in like that second or third quarter, they did have some struggles because, like I said, they were just on the field forever. Like offense did literally nothing. So they just got tired and they started to give up plays. But it was the defense finally, once they forced that turnover, it was like, all right, we got a shot. But ultimately, it just came down to the offense just stalls out when we needed it most.
Yeah. So I mean, when we went down and got that touchdown, one key thing we did was we realized, Julio's going to get doubled or tripled in the red zone, and we allowed Gage to work one-on-one with whoever picked him up, and it just so happened to be Quan Alexander, who's a linebacker. He won that matchup for that little 5-10 yard out that he turned into a down there in the red zone. And I thought, okay, here's the turning point for the offense. We're winning our one-on-one matchups. We're starting to really do what we need to do, because then we held the Saints to 3-and-out again, got the ball back down 21-16, drove all the way down to the red zone, and that's where that Gurley, what happened was it was a 1st and 10 run where Ito Smith ran for about 9 yards, went down. When he was down, the ball popped out. The Falcons recovered it about 2 yards back. And for whatever reason, that play was not reviewed, and they just went with a live ball on 2nd and 3. The 2nd and 3 play call was it was either a counter or a draw that just went wrong. They blew it up off the left side because as soon as Gurley got the ball, there was 2 people in his face. Yeah. Tried to outrun him to the edge, wound up losing 6 yards on it, turned down to 3rd and 9. So as head coach, I don't know why you don't at least challenge that first play, because if you looked at replay, and Vilma even said Ito was down.
Yeah.
The refs don't look at it. We don't challenge it. So that cost us 2 yards right there instead of being able to get, an easy first down, because it was maybe 2nd and half a yard to second and inches, because Ito fell right on the first down line with his head. You do that, and then the 4th down play, we opt to go for it because we think, we only got 2 timeouts. We won't get the ball back here. We'll go for it. And then we throw to Julio in a triple team.
Double.
I thought there was a guy got there late. It was technically a double team. You are right.
Yeah, well, it was not. Demario Davis came and helped him up, but it was PJ Williams
and their Marcus Williams
on coverage, and then Marcus Williams came. He floated over.
Yeah.
Like to help, and
it was bracket coverage essentially.
Yeah. Which, I mean, here's the thing. That has legitimately been the way Dennis Allen has covered Julio the past 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know why it surprised him or why it surprised anybody. What he does, the first time, matter of fact, it was 3 years ago, Ridley's rookie season. The reason Ridley had a breakout game was because they started, initially they had Marshawn on Julio and then giving him help over top with the safety. And then they had the number 2 corner covering Ridley one-on-one. And Ridley destroyed their number 2 corner. I believe at the time was...
I think that was PJ Williams, wasn't it?
No. It was Ken Crawley.
Oh, that's right. Crawley was there.
Ken Crawley. And he was destroying him. So the next time, so like then it was he did it to Eli Apple too. He beat Eli Apple. So then they decided to switch and said, all right, we're gonna put Marshawn on Ridley on an island, and then we're just gonna put the number 2 corner with help on Julio. And it slowed us down. And that's when Julio's been healthy, that's been the style that they've played us ever since. Kind of a cover 6, like cover 6 like a coverage with man on everybody else, because they're like, we don't fear anybody else except Julio.
You know when that happened after, right?
What?
It was after Belichick did it to us in the Super Bowl, because
Yeah.
he bracket cover. He literally ran cover 6 against us all game with Julio.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to bracket him all game. And Dennis Allen said, oh, that works.
Yeah.
And then he just copied it.
Mhm.
So, again, another strike against Dirk Cutter, to not know that this is what they're going to do against you. You got to get more creative, man.
But the sad thing was Sark couldn't figure it out either. The only thing that saved Sark was Ridley was destroying the number 2 corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they put Lattimore on Ridley, it was just like, all right, well, because I'll never forget that first game we played them 3 years ago, when Julio was pissed because
I remember the play, exactly the play you're talking about.
That pick, and he's like, I told you what they're doing. Like, you can't do it, and you can't call that. And it's just like, actually, that might have been 4 years ago, but yeah, it was just like, it's the same. They've legitimately played us the same way defensively in the coverage wise, that like you said, it comes down to everybody else beating their individual matchups, and that was the problem. The other guys couldn't get open, and if they did, they dropped some passes, and that's.
Yep. That just brings us full circle back to fire Dirk Cutter. Fire Dirk Cutter now. He's really bad. But here's the crazy thing. Even after we blew that play call, because Russell Gage, what happened was Julio ran a fade route from the slot, ran up and out essentially on a fade route, and got, maybe this much separation over the corner underneath, but that would have had to been a ball that got there as soon as he got in between the coverage and just a bullet, and that's just not what Matt Ryan's capable of. So Matt Ryan lobs it up there. Julio gets one hand on it, doesn't come down with it. But the thing that bugged me was watching Russell Gage just absolutely dust his corner off the line on that slant.
Yeah.
He was 3 steps ahead of that corner and would have easily gotten the first down and potentially ran in for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Because the safety shifted over to help that guy on the fade route, because they knew where we were going, man.
Yeah.
Anytime you see Julio in the slot, and this was, I think it was Collinsworth that pointed this out. If you see Julio in the slot, we go to him about 75% of the time. The only time we move him there is when we're gonna go to him. Essentially, it's never a decoy. If it doesn't go to him out of the slot, most of the time it's because they covered it well, and Matt is forced to go elsewhere.
Yeah,
and it just goes back to predictability of this offense and the repetitiveness of it. I remember the first time Cutter was here. Anytime we saw Weems check into the game as a wide receiver at an 11 formation, you knew it was a run play.
Yeah.
You knew it was.
Well, that was Sark.
Was that Sark? Are you sure?
Sark. Mm-hmm.
Was that his first year?
Both of his years.
I thought Justin Hardy was Sark.
Justin Hardy was. Oh yeah, Dirk Cutter. Yeah,
Yeah. It was Special Weems with
it
Cutter.
Was Justin Hardy. I got him mixed up. Number 14, both.
So we managed to get the ball back, even though we got super unlucky in some of the things that happened there at the end. We strip Taysom, AJ Terrell, who played another fantastic game, considering his matchup. He shadowed the second or third best wide receiver in the game all game. And, he gave up some catches, which you're going to do against a great wide receiver like Michael Thomas. But again, every time he caught it, Terrell was right there to bring him down. Or he was all over him, and Michael Thomas just made a great play. But Terrell strips Taysom. Ball rolls towards the out of bounds. It goes out of bounds. And apparently, at least as I learned, if the ball goes out of bounds backwards or forwards, the clock continues to run. Well, the clock will then start up again on
as soon as
they call ready. Right. Which seems kind of inconsistent to me. I mean, it should be the equivalent of a runner running out of bounds. And, especially something like that where it's just chopped out and it's not like we run over and we kick it out of bounds.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that is, I guess so. Like say an offensive player is getting tackled and they need to get out of bounds and can't. So to keep them from like throwing the ball out of bounds to stop the clock, I think that's the intention of putting the rule in. But in this case, it worked against us in that scenario.
Well, there needs to be like a caveat to that rule, because if the player throws it out of bounds, it should just continue to run and just be down at the point of they were there. If it's forced out,
well, I think just not to differentiate. I think it was just easier, just to say if the ball rolls out of bounds on a fumble, then we're not going to stop the clock. So
I get it. You don't really split hairs in NFL rules as much as you do in other sports.
Yeah.
Which is annoying because I feel like there's so many more things.
Like the catch rules and stuff like that. There could be a lot more exceptions and stuff like that could be made, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, so we get that. They burn another 40 seconds off the clock. We get it back, actually. Get down to about the 38, I believe, on a really good play by Ridley where he he does typical Ridley things. He catches it, and instead of getting out of bounds immediately, dances a little bit, then gets out. Leaves us with about 7 seconds on the clock. So we take, most people are in the fans, the announcers were expecting us to try one more play to get out of bounds and then throw it into the end zone from there. We take one more shot into the end zone, just toss it up in a Hail Mary fashion. Saints bat it around, lands up on the ground with 1 second left on the clock. Clock expires, and it's in another dumb NFL rule. They cannot put 1 second back on the clock. It has to be at least 2 seconds left on the clock, which makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's not like, it's a dead ball. So it's not like the clock is running. It's not like they can say.
I mean, if he had just thrown that ball into the ground with 1 second left, they would have stopped it with 1 second left. But they can't put time back on the clock unless it's 2 seconds or more, which I didn't know that rule. Don't understand it, but it is what it is.
Another reason that the NBA rules and referees are infinitely better than NFL referees, because in the NBA, you see them put on like, there's 1.3 seconds left on the clock, because they know every second is important in a sport.
Yeah.
With these professional athletes, like,
now, granted, I don't think it would have made much of a difference.
No,
because that last Hail Mary attempt, Matt threw the ball from about the 48, and it might have made the goal line, maybe.
He threw it so high. I mean, I get that's what you have to do. You have to drop it in over the coverage to try to the guys behind the coverage. But he did, he made it to the goal line.
It was like, dude, and then, here's my thing. It's two things that I, so the fourth down play to Julio, the frustrating thing, I get that Julio is your guy. He's your main guy. He's your best receiver. I understand that. But at the same time, I still understand that Julio was hobbled. So you're trying to throw jump balls to Julio, who has a bad hamstring. Do you really think he's going to out jump somebody with a bad hamstring in that scenario? I mean, it's just like you said. I think hitting Gage would have been a much better plan in that scenario.
I mean, the entire stadium knew where we were going with the ball. The entire Saints defense knew where we were going with the ball. Matt Ryan knew where he was going with the ball before he even snapped. The play started. So it's like, if we as fans knew that, like they were just sitting on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't even get why you go for the end zone there. I mean, go for the first.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was 3rd and 9. It wasn't 3rd and goal.
Well, it's like we talked about with the Cardinals when they played the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. It was just like, y'all had time. You had time. You had you had room to go for the first down. Just go for the first.
Well, that was at least a game. That was with 30 seconds left on the clock. This was like with 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I think at that point it was down. It was like
two minutes.
Yeah,
it was under 2 minutes. Actually,
we got the ball with 6 minutes, and then
yeah, it was about a minute 40, minute 30 or something. Oh well, no, it was like a minute 40 something. But you had enough time to get a first down and try to keep the chains moving.
Man.
Well, it was 4th and 9.
Yeah, it was because that was
so you could have just gotten the first down and then tried to score from inside the 5. But
I mean that all stemmed from not challenging the spot of the ball when Ito went down. Anyway, you got anything you want to say before we wrap this up? Anything about the Falcons?
I mean,
or the game?
No, I mean defense. One thing that I've argued with so many people this year that the defense took a lot of flack for losses when the offense really was the culprit. The offense wasn't consistent, or they weren't efficient enough. And there were several games where the defense gave up points down the stretch, and we lost. Like those fourth quarter comebacks we gave up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, the defense gave up the comeback, but at the same time, if the offense can do something with the ball late, you wouldn't need the defense. And it's come full circle. Now the defense is the thing that's keeping us in the game, and the offense is just this completely inept unit, which is just full of talent. So it's just
the Falcons defense is the better unit this year, and I don't think most people would have predicted that. Even though statistically ranking, they don't show that. A lot of the problems that the Falcons have been having this year on defense can be directly related to the offense since Raheem Morris has taken over. And it can go back before, but those first 5 games, there was a lot of defensive miscues and a lot of blown coverages and things like that. But that's to be expected when your secondary is starting a rookie, a second year player, and a couple other guys are hurt to start the year. So
yeah.
Yeah. So again, we are Fish and Grits, the podcast. We put out weekly episodes. We typically record on Tuesdays. We've had quite a few cool guests on there. For those of you who haven't listened to us, I would suggest jumping on. For those of you coming on to us from YouTube, we've had Brett Coleman. So if you haven't seen him, check out his channel. It's called The Film Room, where he breaks down film way better than most, if not 99% of YouTube does. And a lot better than a lot of these guys who are self-proclaimed experts on TV. So he's a great follow and a great watch. We've had some of our local Atlanta guys on. We've had Andy and Randy on. Andy Bunker by himself several times. Former CFL, soon to be CFL Hall of Famer Byron Parker. We've had some other cool guests on as well. So check us out on all your streaming platforms. Again, we are Fish and Grits, the podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to smash and like that thumbs up button. I'm Ryan, and this is
Micah.
And we shall see.